Since the attacks took place, the US said they will respond in a time and manner of their choosing, and they certainly seem to be doing that. We are hearing that any response to this attack is likely to be larger than those strikes that we saw in recent weeks on munitions depots and the like in Syria and Iraq in response to the other attacks on US bases in the region. And that is because, of course, there was a loss of American life. 3 US troops killed by this drone attack. And we're hearing now, because of the Wall Street Journal and of other outlets as well, why they think that is. Now, there's been reporting that this drone was flying back at around the same time, was flying to the base rather, at the same time that an American drone was flying back to the base. And it basically was a case of mistaken identity. They didn't suspect it of being a suspicious drone, so the air defenses weren't immediately prepped for it. So CNN, citing officials, is also saying that the enemy drone followed the American drone as it approached. It was unclear, though, whether that was intentional or not. They also said that the drone was flying low, which might have helped to evade some of the air defenses anyway. And the point of origin of this drone is still being assessed. Now, it must be said that none of that has been confirmed by officials. That is just what various intelligence sources have told outlets here in the United States. We then heard, however, that the drone, once it got through those air defenses, struck a facility, which was where the troops were sleeping, which is why the injury rate is so high. We now know 40 people were injured in that attack. Some of them medevaced out to Iraq and elsewhere because of their sustained injuries. So the troops there are part of a contingent who were there to stop the re-emergence of the Islamic State group. They've been there for about a decade now, and John Kirby said that that is a mission that they will continue despite this drone attack in Jordan.
And despite all that, Fraser, the US, though, still insisting that it does not want a full-scale war with Iran.
Yeah, and the United States really does seem to be walking quite a tightrope here between trying to respond with a force which is big enough to try to deter any more attacks, because clearly the others haven't succeeded in deterring these Iran-backed militant groups from striking US assets, but also without sparking a wider conflict. John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesperson today, said, "We do not seek another war, nor do we seek to escalate, but we will absolutely do what is required to protect ourselves and to respond appropriately to these attacks." Now, when he was pressed on whether that meant that there would be strikes directly inside Iran, he refused to say one way or another, instead just repeating, "We do not seek a war with Iran." However, it must be said, experts here do believe that a strike inside Iran itself is unlikely, mainly because they then risk, of course, that war escalating and spiraling. However, that is what some opposition lawmakers on the Republican side have called for. They've called for direct strikes on Iran. Now, Joe Biden has got a host of options at his feet. He's met a couple of times with his security officials, including once on Monday at the Situation Room in the White House. We are told that it could be a plethora of options, whether that's blockading Iranian shipments to groups that the Iranians back in the areas, strikes on infrastructure used by those Iranian-backed groups, or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps itself. That could also include cyber attacks. They could also have a more direct message sent to Iran by targeting Iranian vessels and assets operating in the Persian Gulf. And of course, there are sanctions that the US could put on Iran as well. Anthony Blinken says the response could be multi-leveled, come in stages, and be sustained over time. But what that entails right now, we do not know.